Hello, everyone. My name is Dustin with Mars Hill Technology, and today we're kicking off our first week of week 1 of 4 of Master Your Smartphone. We're going to be talking today about knowing your dashboard. So, your phone has a lot of gadgets and gizmos on it these days, and we're going to be actually looking at what you need to be focusing on and what to ignore. A lot of people get focused on the things that we need to ignore, and we actually need to focus on the most important things. So we're going to be talking about that in our next series. We're going to go in deep dives in certain topics throughout the weeks, but we're going to go. The first part is going to be week 1, which is your dashboard actually on your phone. So what's the big idea with this? Is your phone isn't trying to trick you. It's just overloaded with switches. Like I said, there's a lot of different settings nowadays with cell phones and smartphones in particular. And we're going to show you some shortcuts and some things to actually navigate through your phone and what to actually be setting. So most settings are already set correctly right out of the box, especially when it comes to iPhones. Most of the settings are just general settings that you don't really need to monkey with or mess with. You fine tune your phone based on your actual needs. And the big part today is notifications. That's where a lot of people get overwhelmed. You get a notification for everything, and we're going to be talking about that a little later. But a small number are actually worth checking on a regular basis, and we're going to be talking about those today. And even if you start with a few, that's a lot better than trying to do everything. So just take a few at a time. If it annoys you enough, I just go in there and take the couple seconds to go ahead and turn these settings on. So today you can think of it as a pre-flight checklist, not fully rebuilding your aircraft, which is your smartphone. A few minutes here can save you a lot of issues and chaos later on. So you just take a few minutes and then check these little things. So what are we going to be talking about today? The 6 stops on our dashboard today is we're going to be talking about finding the cockpit, and that's your settings on your phone, where it lives, and one little trick that helps trying to find different settings in throughout the various menus in there. So it's really cool to be able to use this one little shortcut. We're going to be talking about battery, what actually drains it, and what one switch worth knowing about with both Apple and Android. We'll talk about storage, how to read your numbers, what to maybe optimize or to delete to get back some of your storage on your phone. We'll talk briefly about using some services, whether it be iCloud, using a USB to be able to bring some of those files over to something that's a little more external, and that way it's not always on your phone. We'll talk briefly about notifications and how to quiet those. We'll look a little bit about your privacy, and then we'll do a brief recap on 5 things to check before you in today's lesson. So what's the first one? Well, first stop today is finding the cockpit. We're going to be talking about where to actually find the settings on your different model or your different phone here. So with an iPhone here, you're going to look for a gray little cog here. You see this gear? You're going to be looking for that. That's usually on your actual home. If you haven't set up your iPhone, it's usually on the very first home screen, where you can swipe left or right to be able to find that setting there. If you're in the middle, a good shortcut for iPhones, if you're in the middle of an iPhone, you can put your finger on in the middle of your iPhone and then just drag it down while holding onto the screen with your finger. So if you put your finger down and then just slightly bring it down, it actually is a shortcut to actually search your phone for whatever apps or anything that you've maybe messaged. So it's a good way to do that. And you can just type in settings there in that search bar and it'll find it for you. But you're looking for a little cog icon here. So Android, same thing. You can swipe down to the top of the screen. You tap that gear icon in the quick panel, or you can find it in your app drawer. So swipe down, look for that cog and for the settings there. And the best thing to do is every settings app, this is the shortcut, every settings app has a search bar at the top. And you can type in whatever setting you're looking for. So maybe you're looking for your battery, or you're looking for storage, and you can search right there in that little search bar, and it'll bring it to whatever setting that is, and then you can optimize it. So that's a good little tip for you. So where should your priority go whenever you're actually focused on your phone? Like I mentioned earlier, there's over 200 different settings, and you're like, where should I really start? And these are some of the topics that I think that most people should look at whenever they're actually on their phone, and what they should start with first. So what do you think about a battery? What do you think that should be? This little gauge here is going to be changing based on the importance of where you should be actually spending most of your attention. So what about the battery? Well, the battery is good by default. Most of the settings in here are just as good, keeping it just how it is. But you can always fine tune your battery, and there's settings like if you want a percentage and things of that nature in your phone. That's a place you can go. But by default, they're pretty smart. So batteries these days, most manufacturers, when iPhone and Android manufacturers, they have the battery pretty much optimized. iPhone does a really good job at this. I remember back 15 years ago or 10 years ago, whenever the first smartphone were coming out, everything was getting drained because the screen was crazy. So it would take so much energy for the screen and running everything. So you had to download apps to actually optimize your battery, whether it be charging or whatever. And iPhone and Android started putting this built into the OS system. So by default, this is just a normal priority for your battery. What about storage? Well, storage is very important. So almost everyone's storage, every client I talk to, every person I talk to, their storage is maxed out. It's either very close to full or it's already maxed out because no one wants to take that actual time to set up storage properly. And that's with either using a cloud provider such as like maybe iCloud or Google Drive. Most people won't migrate those photos, so they're just using the hard drive that's on the phone. Phones aren't meant to be your computer, and people are using them like your little mobile computer and storing everything on them. A lot of people still need to migrate those photos over and everything. So we'll talk about that in the next class and everything about how to kind of optimize your storage. But it's good to start thinking about where your attention should go when it comes to storage. What about notifications? Well, notifications um, are always on by default. When you download an app, it'll ask you, do you want to have notifications on when you put it on your phone? And the best thing to do is just deny it if you don't really need the notifications, or go into your settings and turn off some of your notifications. Some of the notifications we have on our phone, they're just pinging all the time. You don't even know what they're coming from, or if it's important. It's just trying to get your attention, so you'll either buy something or use the app. That's the whole premise of it for notifications. So make sure you go in there and just customize your notifications. With iPhone, you can go in there and pretty much be like, I just want banners, I just want icons, like I just want the icon on the actual app to show like a one or two. You can do all sorts of different notifications and settings for that. But the best thing to do is just turn off the apps that you don't need notifications on. That way your focus is the ones that actually do alert you. What about permissions? Permissions is more for privacy. That's what we're talking about here and everything. And we're going to be talking about a little bit more of that in a future lesson here. But permissions is an important one. What has permissions? What needs access to your camera? To your microphone, things of that nature. You're wondering why you get targeted ads. Well, it's probably because Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or whoever you gave permissions for your microphone. That's a big part of how they use. If you give permissions for it, it's going to use the permissions when it wants. And a lot of people don't know that. So make sure you're looking at your permissions on your phone. We'll talk about that a little bit too, a little later in the next series. All right, what about your display? Your display text and size, this is something you can leave to where you actually get accustomed to your phone. You might be like, I want larger, text on my screen or whatever it might be. So you want to leave this one to the end because you can always go back and you can adjust these. If you're having a hard time navigating, that's something that you should put more of your focus to. Let's say that your eyesight's not really well or really good or whatever, or you have you're colorblind. You should go and you should change some of these settings just so you can actually navigate your phone effectively. But later on, these are things that you do after you set up things, your wallpapers, things of that nature. All those little things that you customize and you want to do to your phone when you get it, you can always leave it for later. And that's what I would suggest. Make sure you focus on these parts first before actually doing anything with your display. What about updates? Updates is like a normal, priority, where your attention should go. Most updates are actually turned on by auto update. But you just want to make sure they're checked. After you check it, you don't really have to check it that often, unless you're monkeying with the settings of something. I like to take about quarterly with my phone. I like to go through and just check my settings. I like to go through and just double check to see if any new privacy or any kind of new patch came out that provides a little more details of it. So I like to do that. I like to go through and just check to make sure everything looks good. So, what are two kinds of settings that we focused on today? And that's set it and forget it. That's where you configure it once and you walk away. And that phone just handles the rest after that point. And then the other one is worth a monthly glance. Like I said, I do mine quarterly, deep dive into it, but it's worth a monthly glance for a few of these settings. And the reason is because they drift over time and they deserve that 1 month check in. So what do you think about these different settings here? What should you do for this one? So auto lock, screen timeout, what should you do there? Well, you might want to set it and forget it. If you set it and forget it, you don't really have to do much when it comes to your actual, updates, when it comes to your auto lock or your screen timeouts. So once you prefer a certain setting for that, whether it be screen timeout where after 5 minutes it actually turns off, or if it's an auto lock when it comes to inactivity with your phone. Those are things that you set once and you forget about it. You got it set up. What about software and auto updates? Well, that's the same thing. It's a set and forget. So if you have automatic updates for your software, that's where that one's going to come in. What about Wi-Fi and Bluetooth? Well, typically when you set up Wi-Fi, wherever, if it's in your home or wherever it might be, typically you set it up once and you don't have to touch it again for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So you set it up and forget it. So if you have a device, you sync it and it's done. As long as you have those settings turned on, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, you're going to have access to whatever you're trying to do. You might have to click it in a list if you have multiple Bluetooth items, but it's going to be pretty much set and forget. What about storage and that free space? Well, that's one you definitely want to do monthly glances, especially if you don't have a lot of room on your phone. You want to see what information is being stored and what apps have, most of your storage space. So you want to kind of check out those monthly glances. iPhone does a great job at that. It will give you a little notification, say, hey, your iPhone storage is full. And we've seen it probably a million times, on our phone. Hey, your iPhone storage is full. You want to go in there and kind of delete things. You'd be surprised, when you look at the little bar graph for your storage on your iPhone, it's going to show you, hey, you have 28 gigabytes in apps. And you're like, well, I didn't know that. And you can actually check which apps have the most data. And it might be podcasts that you're downloading and you don't need to do that. They're all cloud-based, so you can access them unless you're traveling where there's no internet or something of that nature. You can do that on the fly with your cell phone usage. What about app permissions? It's worth a monthly glance just to make sure your privacy is protected. Go in there and just check to see what apps have permissions. Sometimes it's a one-time kind of thing, and the best thing to do is just go back there and toggle it off after you're done with it. It's a pain in the butt, but it's worth your privacy these days to not give full access to all your photos on your phone or your microphone all the time. If I want to do something, I go around it a backwards way. I either upload the audio myself or I turn it on for a few seconds and then I turn it off after it's done doing what it needs to do. But a lot of people, they toggle these on and they leave them, and then a lot of apps harvest the data on that. So kind of look at that with your app permissions. Your notifications, this also warrants a monthly glance. If you're looking at your notifications on your phone, if something's pinging you all the time and giving you notifications, it's worth going in there and just checking your notifications. Do I even need notifications for this app anymore? Maybe you signed up for weather app and it's giving you notifications like nonstop about pollen counts or whatever. You might want to go in there and toggle those settings off or turn it off completely, or think about a different app. So notifications is definitely worth a monthly glance there. So stop 2, this is your battery. We talked about that a little bit earlier about your battery, but you want to make sure, like if you have an iPhone, you want to make sure that optimized battery charging is on. I actually set mine at 85% and not to go to 100% of the cell phone battery, and that's just to keep the cell phone battery in top shape. Nowadays, with so many phones being so expensive, especially iPhones, and RAM and hard drives are now crazy expensive, it's good to get the most that you can out of your phone. We don't like migrating our information, so choosing a few of these settings or going through there and just reviewing them is a good thing. So I usually charge mine all the time, so I can put it at 85. Some people put theirs at 95, but that's like a more advanced setting in iPhones. But it's good to go in there and just double check that optimized battery charging is on, and that allows it to slowly charge your phone versus doing a quick charge, to maximize your health of your battery there. Androids do the same thing. They have adaptive battery or battery manager, and it learns your habits, and it'll turn background drain automatically. So it trims it, for your background drain automatically. So those are settings you can go in Android, go into the battery and adaptive battery, and just make sure you toggle those off. So a big myth here, a lot of people, they close apps, and back in the day that actually did help, but a lot of modern phones these days will suspend apps when you're not using them. So force quitting these apps and then turning them on will use more resource. What they'll do is they'll just suspend the app and not use any resources on it, so it's not hurting anything. And most of these manufacturers like iPhone and Android, they understand that people use the app and then they go do something else, and they never go back and actually close it. There was apps back in the day when people's batteries were being affected by this that would automatically close apps after so long. And now the manufacturer said, well, we'll just suspend them. I think iPhone was one of the first, Apple. And the reason is because they're trying to give you, less resources like RAM or hard drive space. And they said, well, we'll just optimize the software versus getting more hard drive or hardware and putting it in there. So, these are pretty advanced tools to help save your resources on your phone. So the top 3 today is storage, like we said. Or like I said earlier, we're going to be talking about this in upcoming classes. So make sure you like and subscribe here so you can get notifications on that, of the next series we do or the next week we do. But really quickly on storage, you just want to check your numbers today. Go through your iPhone here. You can go to settings, the cog like we said earlier, general iPhone storage, and just see what's on your actual bar graph. What space, what's being used on your phone. And if it's something you need, a lot of people have a lot of photos on there, and they might just need to migrate those over or purchase more cloud storage. So you need to kind of look at this and just kind of do a little audit today. Just kind of think about what you're going to do. The same thing for Android. You can tap the free up space for an instant guided cleanup for the biggest offenders, and that's right under settings and storage and free up space. You'd be surprised what's on your phone that you no longer need, or you forgot to change the setting. So 9 times out of 10, photos and videos are your number one culprit. Like I said, a lot of people don't ever clean out their photos and videos when it comes to storage, but you can turn on optimized storage or Google Photo backups to keep those originals safe in that cloud environment, and that'll free up space on the device. You can also use USBs. You can connect an external hard drive or USB to your actual device and migrate those, or connect them to your computer. That's a good way to migrate some of your photos on there, if you have a computer with hard drive space. So step 4 is your notifications. There are immense amount of notifications these days on your phone, so you need to go through and actually look at what is actually pinging your phone. A lot of people, they just silence their phone. I do it. These days I just silence my phone because I have so many different notifications going on. It's just an endless amount of them. But even when I don't silence it, like I'm working with my business or something of that nature, I have focus glances on my iPhone. So like focus states, I should say. And that basically mutes certain notifications during certain time periods. And that's a cool feature for it. But the best way to do this is actually go in app by app and turn off badges and banners for anything you don't need when it comes to iPhones here. Android, you can do the same thing. They have a little setting here. It's called a digital well-being and focus mode, similar to what iPhone has. And you just go in settings and notifications, and you want to turn on the focus mode, or you can go in and actually disable some of the notifications. Like I said or mentioned earlier, if you don't need that notification, just toggle it off. There's no reason to even have it on, or focus mode or whatever. Just toggle it off. And the best thing to do is usually when you're installing apps, they'll ask you if you want notifications. You say no. So if you don't need notifications, say no, or limit what you need or whatever. So it's by default, they're trying to do their best to allow you the options to change something like that. So what do you want to keep your notifications on? Messages, that's a good one. With text messages, you want to be notified when you get a text message. Your phone, calendar, turn everything else off, if you don't need it. So if you need that notification and it's important, then go ahead and do that. But most of the time we're clicking and checking in our apps daily, so a lot of those we can actually turn off. So step 5, and this is your privacy. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later. So about 2 Tuesdays from now, we're going to be talking about who's got the clearance when it comes to like privacy on your phone and everything. But it's good to kind of look at what's on your iPhone and where to find it. So on the iPhone, it's still under the settings. You're going to look for privacy and security, and it'll show you every app's access to your cameras, your mics, locations, and more. And Android's very similar too. Settings, privacy and security, and permission manager. You'll see what has access to your camera, your microphone, your calendar, whatever it is that's linked to your phone. You'll see what's got access to it. And it's good to kind of think about that for today. So, a quick tip for today: a green or orange dot at the top of your screen means your camera or microphone is active right now, and it's worth a glance at anytime you see it. So, if you ever see at the top, especially with iPhone, there's a big green dot, or well, I shouldn't say big. It's a pretty good size green dot, or it's an orange dot. That's telling you that it's using your camera or a microphone, and that's a good feature to have because sometimes you don't know that there's something actually listening in the background or whatever. So it's worth kind of looking at those settings and kind of get an idea, and then we'll do a deep dive a little later. So here's some things you can stop worrying about. So you're not behind whenever you're doing anything. You don't have any broken. A few things to think about is you don't have to do any kind of force quitting every app to save that battery. Like we talked about earlier, modern phones already manage that for you, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. Turning off background refresh for everything. It can break useful things like your Find My and calendar reminders. So if you're turning off background refresh, if you're not familiar with that, some of these things need that to constantly be updating when it's certain apps like Find My on iPhone, like where your device's location is if you lose it, or calendar reminders. Maybe you're actually about to drive or something of that nature, and you want a reminder when to leave, and you have notifications set up for that. So those are some things to think about whenever you're turning off the background refresh. Clearing your app cache constantly. So that really doesn't really help much. If you have a stale app or it's crashing or something of that nature, those are typically things that you do in those situations to troubleshoot, but you don't have to go in there and like clear your caches and things of that nature. So typically caches are there to help you to not have to load certain information. So if you clear that out, it has to start loading that. So it can actually slow you down the next time you go to something or use that app. So if you're having issues, that's when you'd clear it, but typically you just leave it going. Disabling all location services. If you turn off all your location services because you're like, I don't ever want to do this, some of these important services like Find My iPhone or device on Android, if you ever lose your phone, you won't have that service going because you turned off the settings. So you don't want to just click turn off, turn off, turn off, turn off. You want to go one by one and make sure that you actually do need the service anymore, like location or whatever. And it's kind of annoying sometimes that you have to go in there and turn it on and off. So if you're using an app constantly, you have to kind of trade off some of your privacy for not having to go in there and turn it off all the time. So you're not required to master every setting. You're in charge of your phone, not the other way around. So you don't have to go in there and do any of this, but it's good to kind of think about this and get a little peace of mind when it comes to your smart device. So the 5 gauges worth checking today. These are the most important: is turn on automatic software updates. In all of our previous classes, we talked about the importance of actually going in there and checking that you're getting automatic updates, whether it be your router, your phone, your computer. So it applies right here to your phone. You want to confirm Find My iPhone and Find My devices on. This is a big one because when the situation happens and you're actually like you've lost your phone or left it somewhere, you can track your phone back. So it's really good to have that. iPhone, you can actually log in with someone else's Find My device, log in with your device or maybe your spouse or partner or whatever, and you can actually log in on your account and use their device to help you find your device. So even if it's your only iPhone or whatever device, so it's good to have that one working and everything. Check that your photos are backing up. We talked a lot about in previous classes about the importance of backing up data, practicing the 3-2-1 rule. If you don't know what that rule is, go on Google and type that in, 3-2-1 rule and backup, and it'll tell you exactly what that is. But you want to practice having a good backup service. If you can't afford to lose it or it's very important, you need to practice that rule for it. And then set up focus modes. Like I said, an iPhone, it's a really good little trick to have it to where it automatically mutes certain notifications, like if you're at work, and then you can set it by time where it automatically change for you. I have one where I'm working out and like in a gym environment. I have it where it only allows me to have my notifications from my gym app when the timers go down. And it'll automatically update my statuses when people text me and things of that nature, so people know that I'm busy. So focus modes are really important. When you're in your setting, you can always use the search bar. It's at the top to find these certain settings. It'll highlight where you need it, and you can click those settings. So we're gonna pick one gauge and just check it. Like I said, you don't have to do all of it at once. Just do one at a time, and just think about it. Like maybe you got 20 minutes, whatever, at your house, or you're waiting for a haircut or whatever, and you want to change something. You can go in your settings on your phone, use that gear icon, and then use the search bar once. You're going to check your storage number. You can type in storage, check your numbers on your storage. Maybe you want to do software updates, type that in, turn those on to make sure. And then if you need help, whatever, you're always welcome. This is for our local customers in the area here in Western North Carolina, but you can always bring your phone in on Tuesdays, and I can help you in class. If you have a question, you can reach out to our company here, and I'll be happy to give you a little assistance, or you can use Gemini or Google to be able to find those settings and everything as well. So it's a good thing to think about in the future and everything when you're working on stuff. So thanks for joining us. For next Tuesday, we're going to be clearing the runway. We're going to talk about storage cleanup and speeding up. You're on a sluggish phone, so bring your device for those that are joining us locally and everything. And we'll be talking about that one on our next class in our Tech Talk. But if you need help or anything, we're happy to help you. We do smartphone assistance for people. So if you need any help with that, we're happy to do that. I can actually do that remotely. So if you're watching on YouTube, I can talk to you over the phone. We can help you that way as well. Happy to do that as well. We also have digital privacy. We talked about a lot of the privacy settings that we're going to be looking at. This will kind of be on some more of the slides in the future, but it's something to think about, is using the right tools and everything for your privacy these days. There's so many different tools that are out there, and it's good to kind of think about it. But if you haven't already thought about it, try to use a VPN when you're on unsecured networks, when you're traveling or working, and always use a password manager. That's a huge part that you can't emphasize enough these days, is using a good password manager, thinking of one really strong passphrase or password, and then having randomly generated passwords. So if anything does get actually hacked, or the data gets leaked on the internet in some capacity, you have most of your stuff is protected with a unique generated password using a password manager. So, and then always sign up for multi-factor authentication or using a passkey on like your smartphone. So that's always good. Well, thanks for joining us, and continue to like and subscribe to your channel here for upcoming videos or slideshows here in the future for this series. Have a good day.